G'day guys, today is going to be a super quick video on how to level up your shelving to fit more gaming consoles. Something most of us probably need. So just hopping here onto IKEA's website, you can see the Kallax unit, which is a pretty good deal. This is an Australian price obviously. Now I've got the older unit of this, which is called the Expedit, and they're roughly the same dimensions internally, just that the older unit is slightly wider on the edges. And there are dimensions here, so you can see 33 centimeters wide by 39 centimeters deep. So that's what we're working with. So the first thing we'll need to do is source some extra material for the shelving. And you could probably go down to your local hardware store, but a little life hack here. I've actually gone down to my local IKEA because down at the exit part of IKEA, they've usually got a seconds and return section. Now, if you do wander down to the return section, you can actually find some bargains. So, returned benches, kitchen tables, couches, your decorative item, pretty much everything. And it's great because obviously you're saving things from going into landfill, which is what most companies do when you return stuff. But the part we're interested in is actually the spare materials corner. So over here they've got bits of shelving, bits of doors, front of cabinets, stuff like that. And a lot of the time you can actually find the exact shelving that you're after, so you don't actually need to cut anything. But we didn't find that this time, but we did find something that'd suit. And it was this bit here. The measurements worked right. It's 80 centimeters by 40. So we could cut this in half and have our two shelving bits. So we've taken that home here just on the workbench, and we're just going to measure the width of the actual shelving part. So it did say on the website they're 33 centimeters, but it does actually look like the older Expedit unit was slightly wider, 33.5 centimeters or 335 mil. So we're just going to mark that on one side and mark it on the other. And next we'll get something nice and straight like this bit of wood, and we will mark that line which we will cut. And there we go. Now obviously because our bit of wood is 80 centimeters, we don't actually need the part in the middle, so we can be a bit rough with that center section and use the two outer sections of 33.5. Now if you're going to use a handsaw, I recommend you just drag it in one direction first so you can give yourself a nice scoring edge and you don't get that chip away from the top of the laminate. But this will take a while, and I do recommend using power tools if you've got the option. So if you've got a miter saw, then definitely bring that out. It's probably the easiest way to do it. You may need to flip the board upside down if your track isn't long enough, like I did here. And there you go. Next up, it's just repeating the steps from earlier on the other side of the wood, which is measuring your 335 mil markers and line. And just to mix it up on the other side of the shelf, I'm going to use a circular saw for this cut. And I've used a guide where I've basically clamped a bit of wood, and we're going to make sure that the 0 mil target is aligned with our cutting line. And it's always a good idea to make any final adjustments by gliding the circular saw over the test line, making sure that it stays on the line the whole cut through. And then we can proceed with our actual cut. Now I did get somewhat lazy here in that I did start by scoring the edge, and when I got to the second half of the wood I just sort of dropped the rest of the saw in and continued on, which did result in some tear out, but this shelf's going to be right down the bottom and this is at the back edge of the wood, so it's not that big of a deal. Here's the actual unit before the shelves were added. I've already done the shelf mounts here. The best way to do that is to come up with a little jig, which I have here. It's actually just a bit of wood with a drill hole to the exact height of where you need to drill all the rest of the holes for the mounting of the shelf. So you basically only need to measure once, and the measurement, if anyone's interested, is 153 mil. Now that may vary depending on your unit, so I suggest you double check the exact point that you want the shelving at. Now remember, it's not exactly halfway because the actual shelf itself is usually between 10 and 15 mil in height, so you need to factor that in. And here's the final product, just waiting to be filled with consoles. And I grabbed a small selection that I had laying around here. So yeah, hopefully you found that video useful somewhat. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching, guys.